it is very awkward when I'm pulling pictures off of a woman's Instagram and my wife is walking by.
Put that beautiful sugary sand on the beaches. Those were little mini ecosystems that years ago the Division of Fish and Wildlife and the DEP identified as essential fish habitat.
When you buy this $500 combo, be prepared to leave it there until striped bass fall next December in South Jersey. Yep. Because you ain't going to use it unless you're going north.
If I know that there's a nice solid bite possibly waiting, like it's tough for me to sleep. Like I'm just kind of still like a kid in a candy store.
If you want my honest opinion, shut the season down. Period. I could even care less about us.
Okay. Well, that's a tantrum. Come on. Come on. Welcome to the Fat Dad Fishing Show live stream and podcast. My name is Rich Natoli, the host of this show. Tonight, we do not have a guest, but we do have the full complement of co-hosts. So welcome onto the stream, Ed and John. How you guys doing?
What's going on?
Well, this is going to be one of those episodes where we're going to kick back and talk about what's been going on out there on the water the past couple of weeks. We were going to have Stefanos on from SFO Tackle, but he had some stuff come up. You let me know late last week that he just cannot avoid. I guess it's, one of those things as a business owner, and he could not avoid. So we're going to reschedule with him coming up. But man, I think it's actually good timing, because if it was going to happen for me personally, this was a good week for it to happen, because things changed, and I've been having a decent season so far, but the past week things have really changed for the better. So we're going to talk about all that. We're hoping that all the people out there in the chat watching the live stream will jump in, let us know how you've been doing, participate that way. But before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the contest for the podcast. So as most people know, we have the video here for the live stream, and then we repurpose the audio for a podcast, and it goes out at midnight Thursday morning. And it's essentially for people that, they want to listen to something when they're driving in their car, either on the way to work, or from what I've understood, a lot of people listen to it on their way to the water over the weekend and then finish it up on the way back. So we release it on Thursday morning early, so that it's there when they wake up, and you can do whatever you want. Take it with you to work just to start off the Friday, weekend. And then if not, listen to it over the weekend. We get a lot of listens then. But we have a bit of a contest going on, and it's not for subscribes to this channel. It is not for membership to this channel. It's not for buying courses or tackle or rods. It is for leaving a review on Apple Podcasts for the Fat Dad Fishing Show podcast. And that's the review and the rating. So 5-star rating and a review, just that you write out and you just give your feedback on it. And anyone who has put one in at all is entered in automatically. And at the end of this month, so we have about a week left, I'm going to give away a Fat Dad Fishing trucker cap. It's not a huge giveaway. However, we may add something in next week as well. So if you've put one in, you're entered, whether you want to or not. Doesn't mean you have to take it if you win, but you're entered for it. And then we'll probably run these periodically as we go forward. But I've gotten a lot of cool reviews from people, and very appreciative of them. And we got to the point where we need to go through a couple of weeks. So here are two. I'm going to read the top one first, from Mike M5677. Great and informative, 5 stars. Like all shows and podcasts, you can learn a lot from Rich and his guests about anything inshore and kayaking. And then one from, I don't know how to pronounce this, Kahiki Lil Gomez or something like that. Whoever you are, thank you. Yeah, another 5-star. Great show. Love the content, and the show is great to listen to. People that have the same passion and generally fish the same areas while targeting the same species. So thank you to both of you. You're both entered into that. And we're gonna give away that hat. It's a great hat, by the way. I love it. I have two. I have one. I think I mentioned this before. I have one that I wear on the water that is turned all sorts of different colors over the past 2 years, and then I have this one that is actually black, which is what I typically wear. A black hat. My other black hat is like orange and pink and gray. looks
You need to get some
terrible.
color in your life, Rich. Black
Well, I have
everything.
a gray tank top on tonight. Yeah, I didn't feel like getting dressed up for this one. I couldn't find a Fat Dad shirt that was clean because I've been fishing so much. So
We need to get you these nice Hawaiian.
I don't do colors. If I can get a Hawaiian one that's white and black and gray, I'll do it. That works, right? So, all right. So we're going to dive right into this. Let's first say hello to those that are in the chat, the ones that we know that are here. We have Bill. Hey, Bill. John Hutchinson, Crabbing and Fishing, Billy Ackerman. You have Tad in there, participation trophy, and that's all that I see right now. And James Flynn. Guys, welcome. Hope to see you chatting throughout and participating in this one because we're just going to talk about what's been happening on the water. So why don't we do just a quick rundown of how everybody's past week or two went, because we haven't talked about this type of thing in the last couple of weeks. And then we'll go into more detail on it. And we'll go in and start breaking down why we think certain things are happening. And as we're about to kick this off, I'll kick it to you, Ed, first. But I also want to say hi to Heaven and Elle and Mike Mara, who actually we've seen on the water a couple of times. I've seen on the water a couple of times in the past week or so. So welcome, guys. Ed, how was your last week?
Dry. I don't know, man. I'm going through the summer doldrums. A couple shorts. I went out Sunday with some friends and just wasn't. I mean, nobody really caught anything of mention, but it seems for me, it's just been rough. But I got out on the new boat and spent more time in that and tweaks and things I want to change. So not all is lost.
All right. So you're declaring it slow for you the past couple weeks.
Very.
Okay. Very slow. John, how have you been doing the past couple weeks? What have you been targeting?
I've been targeting multiple species. Last Friday, we had a little bit of a situation. So it didn't pan out to be what we wanted it to be. So I did not get to fish Friday.
Right.
Saturday, got out with Don, and we brought Kevin along too on his boat. We started out looking for sheep's head at each bridge before we broke the inlet. Picked up some nice tog, broke in the Demon, made our way out to the reef, and quickly turned around after we started taking on water because they were wrong about the conditions.
No.
Shocker.
What a shot. So that was on, you said that was on Don's boat?
Yeah, and that was
Did Don
Saturday.
make you get in the back?
No. I was up front getting ready to drop the trolling motor. I'm like, well, water just went up my ass crack, Don. I think we took on a little bit of water. So let's maybe turn around.
Yeah.
So we turned around. We looked for more sheeps. I hooked one, and I think it was about the third run. We had a boat come in and just create hell of a wake, and that was it. That was done. Very disappointing. Some flounder, some more tog, and that was it that day. Fast forward to this past week, I think I caught every species except fluke and sheep's head on Friday, and that's not the story for you.
No, we had different stories for that day.
Yeah, I let's see. I was out with Ben. I caught tog, sea bass, sea robin, skate, dogfish, toadfish, croaker, spot. I mean, you name it.
You caught a spot also on a regular hook?
Yeah, I mean, dude, if you wanted to make a multi-species day, that was the day.
Yeah.
But I can say this, with water temperatures warming up and everything, the fish are all over. It's don't be looking in particular spots, just find structure. They're there. So I'm going to give it a go again on Friday, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So my summary is right. We went that Friday. There was a what would you call it? An incident?
Yeah.
Yes, there was an incident. One of these things that happens with kayak fishing, and it knocked John out for the day. Although it wasn't John that it happened to. Something that happens it's just one of those normal things. But it can take you off the water for the rest of the day. So that was a tough day. That was a really tough day. I remember being with Perry and Joe, and it was just not a great day. The wind was not cooperating. It was very strong. We were pulling in, a lot of shorts. I think Ben had a keeper, and it launched itself out of the cooler and back into the water. I think it was that day. So he lost one out of the deck of the boat. So he had a good one. I didn't have a great day. I caught a lot of fish, but I did not catch anything worth talking about. I think I don't even remember. I think I came home with one keeper, and that was it. But it was just not the day that any of us wanted. After that, I went twice last week, 2 or 3 times. I don't remember, but I went the 2 days that I do recall. I went the Monday, which we had already talked about, but I went on Thursday, and I went just out. Let me preface this. The Thursday one, for those that have watched the videos on the channel, the one that was released tonight was from last Thursday. So you can see I had a really good day. And I want to stress that I'm not out when I did the trip, I wasn't out just fluke fishing all day. I had a plan, and about half to probably 45 to 65% of my day, somewhere in there, was actually not fishing. It was scouting out new areas. So I was going back in a lot of creeks looking for areas that might hold fish at different times, not necessarily the time that I was there, but I had a great day. So I ended up with a limit. I threw back slots. I threw back overs. So I was well over limit. And I was looking for speckled trout at one point and ended up getting a couple of weak fish. So, and they were decent. I'm probably overreacting in the video because I was just so happy that I got them, and they were, above 13 inches. So they were 16 and a half. The other one was probably 15 and a half. But man, it was a great day. And then I went the next day, and I went to different areas in the same region and had another really good day. That's a video that's going to come out later this week, but I ended up with a big, at one point I totally forgot that I had a fish on the stringer, and it was probably there, to bleed out too long, and ended up with a sandbar shark kind of stalking me. I got that on video, where it just kind of made a pass, and I was like, wow, big shark. And then it occurred to me about 15 seconds later, it was actually coming at my stringer, until I started moving around. Then it shied off. So I got the stringer out of the water, and then I ended up catching one, and it was a big one, and it was caught on the Creeley custom rod, the Fat Dad fluke rod, and it handled it well. So you'll get to see what that rod looks like when you get something on there that just hates the world when you set that hook. And I think a lot of people have seen me set hooks. I put a lot into it. I drive it through, and I drove it through this this shark, and it got pissed. It was not happy with me, so it took off, and that was only in 3.5 feet of water. So you can imagine what that run was. There was no going deep. It was just straight out, similar to how a redfish runs in the flats. I mean, it's just a head of steam, and it just goes. So it was pulling me around. So that's how I went. However, I'm going to say this: things have turned on. I mean, the places where I was catching those fish, going back to what you said, John, were the places that you would expect. The structure, the current, moving the bait into a predictable area. 100% of the fish that I got were in areas like that. Didn't pick up anything on the flats that the boats drift all the time. I caught everything at creek mouths, points, drop-offs, and holes. Every single fish. So let me ask you, is that what you guys have been fishing?
Yeah. When I went out Sunday, I fished a spot where you and I had previously fished. And everybody caught fish that day. This day was weird. Excuse me. No fish.
Yeah.
Or on 2 shorts, but and it wasn't anything that I could pinpoint as far as like something that was wrong with like my presentation or colors or anything. It was just they just weren't showing.
So you were using gulp the whole time?
I was using gulp. The white 6-inch jerk shad on a jig head. That's what produced the most. I was bouncing between that and I've been using this guy Bougie Bait Co. He's a local guy that makes he does all the soft plastics. So he's got like his special blended juice that he puts on there. And it's done well for me in the past. I've caught I think I have a 22-incher and a bunch of other, mixed sizes on them. So it's not like they weren't good. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
And John, what were you using when you were? Well, let's start with the Fluke because you were going for a lot of different things.
Yeah, Fluke. I've been using 6-inch grubs. I've made my way up to that. It's that time of the year I want big fish, so big baits, big fish. They still want live bait though. The Achilles is still producing. I will say that. So my bottom is my bucktail with a 6-inch grub, and my teaser hook is usually Achilles. So fishing structure, looking for snaggy areas. That's where the fish are supposed to be, and I don't know. I'm going to give it a whirl again this weekend. But we'll see what we get.
Let me just make a comment on that. So the sticky areas,
Mm-hmm.
I think the answer I would react to that and say yes and no. So sticky areas can be really good, but to me, it's not the actual sticky spots where the Fluke are going to be. They're actually going to be around it because the sticky spots typically mean rocks, wrecks, something that's sticking up that's going to, pieces of sod bank is typically what we're fishing, right? That fell off. And they're not necessarily going to be sitting on those or between those, but they will be sitting ahead of them and behind them.
Yes.
So if you can find a sticky spot, but then come off of that a little bit, like if you're getting totally hung up and snagged all the time, you got to kind of picture what's under the water, right? So yes, they will be on rocks. I don't know if you are familiar with Tyler Deck. He does videos every now and again on fishing, and he did one where he was, I don't know if he published it or not, but he showed me the video where he was spear fishing, and he was spear fishing Townsend Inlet, and he's down there and he's going along the rocks and he's looking at the bottom and he cannot find a fluke. But if you look, the big boulders, the big ones that maybe were 3 times the size of the fluke, there were doormats sitting on top of those. They weren't on the bottom. They were sitting on top of those. But all the smaller ones were empty, and he didn't see one of them because he wasn't even thinking to look on the rocks. He was just looking on the bottom, but they weren't on the smaller ones. They were on the outside of it. So they're going to be wherever the current is going to push a bait through an area into another predictable area, and that's where they're going to set up. So I don't know if that's what you meant or not, but that's my take on it as far as sticky bottom. If you're totally getting snagged, you might be off by as little as a few feet from where the actual flounder are sitting. But
yeah, for me, it's what you're saying is exactly how I go about it. Is fish around those areas. We got a big hump, let's just say a piece of a side bank sitting there, sit in front of, or fish in front of it, fish in back of it, fish on each side of it. I'll make that same drift 5 times and try to hit every angle as much as I can. That way I make sure every piece of ground is covered.
Yeah, so. And that's the important thing. And the hardest part, I think, is trying to read your fish finder so you understand what the bottom actually looks like. Now, with a side scan, it's easy because you can really see what the contours on the bottom are, but you're not going over what you're side scanning. It's typically, you start getting the better readings when you're 10, 20 feet away from you, depending on the depth. But if you can read a depth finder underneath you and see where's the hump, let's say, as you mentioned, there's a hump or there's a boulder or something, and the current comes over top of it. Well, you fish in front. Ambush predators will set up ahead of the structure, but you'd also fish the back. But think about what the current's doing. The current's going to roll over top and then roll back towards it, right? So it kind of curls over and backwards. So really the best spot is not necessarily right over the hump unless it wants to get out of the current. It's back where it curls or a little bit past there. So you got to go a little bit past that structure because it won't necessarily sit in that little washing machine area, but it will sit behind it because it'll kind of flush everything out, disorient the smaller bait, especially crabs. You know, crab goes through that and it gets tumbled. Well, that's just great bait. So that's the difficult part, you know, trying to figure out exactly how to fish the underwater structure. And it takes a lot of moving around and a lot of thinking about it and trying to put it into perspective and to see it. Are you guys doing that?
Yep.
I sometimes don't do it enough, to be honest with you. I just kind of look, and if I see it dropping, I think, okay, there's a drop off. If I see it rising, I'm like, okay, there's a drop off there. But I sometimes don't do enough of that, and I know I'm not doing enough of that when I'm doing a single drift on an area. You know, if I'm single drifting something, there's no way I have enough intelligence about that spot to know how I'm fishing it and if I'm fishing it correctly. And that's when I realize I'm fishing like a boat. I'm fishing like a weekend guy who doesn't think about it all week, just is glad to get down to the beach, jump on the boat and get out on the water. And that's where that's my least productive days.
Yeah, there are some spots that I'll just power fish over and I won't really pick them apart. But I was actually really picking stuff apart on Sunday, and it was a weird current though because it was the wind was blowing against the current.
Yeah.
So and it was overpowering, the current. So it was kind of like trying to back drift, and there was just a lot going on.
It can be difficult. I mean, it can definitely be difficult. So I mean, I can't say that I had a great week last week. The fish were definitely there, but I was getting a lot of fish, but there were a lot of shorts. And I want to point out one thing that differs from you and John. I do not use the 6-inch right now. I normally would have switched by now, but for me, and listen, this is just an opinion. This is not based in any research or facts or anything like that, so people can take it for what it's worth. But at this time of year, when the water's warmer, I'm talking where it's hitting 80, in the 80s, which is typically happening in mid to late August. Well, now we're at the mid 70s, which is a great temperature, but it's not hot. I'd usually switch to the 6-inch at this time of year. I'm still fishing the 4 and 5-inch when I'm fishing the gulps. I'm even fishing the really short, what are they, 3.5? Is that the shortest ones?
I think so.
Yeah.
4-inch maybe.
Yeah. The 4. Yeah. So I'm fishing the 4 and the 5-inch. I guess there's a little grub. Those little swim mullets seem smaller than they are. So I'll use those too. And I'm catching overs on them. I'm actually doing a good job with them, but I will say it's been Achilles bite and a gulp bite for me. So that day that on the video that I put up today, last Thursday, every single one of those fish, I think, was caught on a 4 or a 5, or no, those were all caught on the Achilles. And then the next day, the video that's coming out later this week, all of them, including the shark, not all of them, most of them, including the shark, were caught on gulp. And they were a 4 and 5-inch. There was nothing, I didn't catch anything on anything bigger than that. And it was once I downsized on that bottom hook on the bucktail, that's when I started getting a lot more action. Okay. And that's kind of why I actually used Achilles for most of that Thursday. Was I don't have a lot of those left. And I don't typically buy a lot of the smaller ones this late in the season. So I really have very few 4-inch gulp baits left in my containers. So I was just kind of lazy. I was like, well, the Achilles are that size, so I'll just throw those on. And it worked well. I was getting weak fish on the Achilles. I was getting getting everything. I get occasional sea robin, sea bass. We're just beating the hell out of them. A couple of times I brought up half of them. Luckily, I didn't get any toadfish. But yeah, and it was funny. I think it was a 4-inch. I think it was a pink swimming mullet that I caught the shark on.
Sharks seem to like the pink, but I would agree with you. Yeah. Like I normally would have switched over to the 6-inchers. I've tried them here and there, but nothing's really messed with them. So it's been the smaller stuff. And the Gulp came out with the smaller grubs too. I don't know if you've seen them.
I have not.
I think they're 4 or 5 inch actual that grubs. They're just like the big ones. They got a real long tail on them. I had a couple packs of those, and I did really well with them. So I should probably go get more.
Yeah,
but
it's worth a go, right?
I think it's just the smaller presentations they're still keying in on.
Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing: big fish catch, or big baits catch big fish. It is true, and you catch less small fish. However, you know what's the saying? Even elephants eat peanuts, or something like that.
Exactly.
I mean, it's true. And I caught, all of the overslots in the past few weeks have been using the smaller baits because I just have not been having the success on those big ones. The only success I've had on the larger ones were freaking sea bass and sea robins that were coming in and biting the tails off. So I ended up with all these just cut off grubs that just, turn into trash, as soon as you pull them up after dropping them twice.
Yeah. Yep. Bill D did put in a question I thought was worth touching on. He says asks, in order to fish correctly, do you need the side view? No, I don't have it. I think Rich, you're the only one that does, right? I don't know.
John just got one.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had it on any of my fish finders. Not to say that I'm, super fisherman, because clearly I'm not, but
So,
a lot of guys don't have them. So
yeah, you don't need to have it. I actually very rarely use it when I'm fluke fishing. I use it for striped bass fishing. I definitely use it when I'm going for bluefish. When I'm looking for big schools of bait, I will use it. I mean, if you have it dialed in the right way, you can see a lot of detail. I will also do it when I'm sheepshead fishing, just to see if I can see things coming off to the side, because sheepshead do school. They're not just individual fish sitting there. There's a lot of them. So I'll do that, if I'm looking for bait and stuff like that. For fluke, I mean, I use a fish finder, and I don't care if I ever see a fish on it because I'm looking at the structure on the bottom. So you don't have to have it. And I rarely use it if I'm just fluke fishing. So 2 answers there. You don't have to have it. You definitely don't have to have it if you're fluke fishing. Let's take a big step back. Nobody needs side scan, right? You can still be incredibly successful without it. You don't need it. It does make it easier for some kinds of fish, not fluke, in my opinion. I mean, it does give you a different view of the structure, but again, it's not structure that you're going over. You're going to have to go back and find that structure again and move over to get over top. It was cool. I did see the shark go through the side scan, though. That was interesting. That was very interesting. It was very clearly a shark. So that was pretty cool to see, but no, I don't think you have to have it. If you're going to be fishing, the schools that are moving around, bluefish and striped bass, though, I would say it'll help. It'll absolutely help. If you're looking for bunker, absolutely that'll help. You'll be able to see that, 60, 80 feet away from you on the bottom, and then you'll know that you just switch over to your heavier gear and get down deep, because you know that the bait's going to be there. But otherwise, you don't have to have it.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's my opinion.
I don't know if you plan on doing any courses on reading and interpreting the fish finder, but if people are interested in the meantime, that Mike Smedley guy, he taught me a lot. He's on YouTube.
Yeah, trying to get Smedley on. We
Are
almost
still trying for that.
Yeah, we almost had it worked out. I kind of, when the season starts, we kind of back off all these guys, and I reach out very cautiously to people because I know they're so busy. Like, it took a lot for me to reach out to Scotty to see if he would come on last week. Just because I know he's in the middle of his, this is where he's making his money.
Yeah.
So he doesn't necessarily want to jump on with us, but we almost had him last in the spring, and he's been difficult. He has been, because he's so goddamn busy, but he's such a great guy too. So
yeah, he seems like somebody I really want to talk to.
Yeah, I talked to him a couple times, and we got so close. So, but I definitely love to have him on. to go through. And to your point, if anyone really wants some help on how to read a fish finder, and if you don't know that you're an expert at it, you're not, because there's a lot more to them than people think. They're not plug and play. Garmin and Lowrance and Humminbird would like you to think that, but they're not. You gotta learn how to dial it in the right way, and it takes some work. And I've been using them since they were printed on paper. It was just a little scrolling stylus that would go up and down. Oh yeah. And that's how it used to be back in the day before you were born. And I wouldn't consider myself to be an expert at this point. I'm pretty close, but no, I watch things that Smedley does, and I'm like, didn't realize that, or that's a great way to think about it. It just made it more clear.
Elle might have the hookup for us. She wants us to ask him. So Elle, can you ask him?
Elle, I'll text you later.
But we got to get the exclusive. Qua, you can't do it.
I don't think that's how it works.
Well, he can go second.
Yeah, it's a small world. The funny thing about all these things is if it's this live stream or that podcast, we're all looking for the same people, because it is such a small world of people. It's there's always going to be overlap. Hell, Ed, you were on Tide Chasers. I was on Tide Chasers, and Dan and Qua were both on here.
Speaking of, I'd like to get them guys back on too.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the answer for the fish finder. John, what's your thought on the side scan? How critical do you think it is?
Well, let's see. For me, I don't think it's necessarily a big thing that you need. For someone like me, though, that loves tog fishing and trying to find, hidden wrecks and pipelines and stuff like that, to me, it's a great tool. Don't need it, though.
Yeah. I think they do so much more damage to some people. You got to be really careful about the video game fishing.
My dad does it.
Yeah, if you're staring at the screen thinking it's wicked tuna and you can't catch a fish until the fish alarm goes off, you're not going to catch a fish, because 99% of the fish don't show up on the fish finder. It's just a fact. 99% of them. If you're using it for other purposes, it'll really help. If you're looking to find big schools, it'll definitely help. But
the only time that I could say that trolling, if you're trolling bass or tuna or something like that, and you see the arches, just be like, all right, get ready. We're going over a pile. And then, a couple seconds later, that's when it goes off. That's the only time that I've ever seen effectively that, hey, I'm going to catch a fish right here, right now, because I just saw it on the screen.
And not for nothing, what you see on the screen, you've already gone over.
Yeah.
The only way to see what is actually under you right at that current moment is to turn the A scope on, because everything else you've already passed over.
Yeah. So that's a good point. Do you guys use the A scope?
I do.
I do too.
I'm still trying to learn.
Also called the flasher. Also called the flasher for people that don't know.
I'm still learning this fish finder, so I'm just getting acclimated to it. So I haven't even got halfway through this thing yet. So I'm still going through setting it up, because I still don't think I'm fully calibrated in and everything either. So
yeah. So for those that aren't aware, the flasher or the A scope is so when you're looking at your fish finder, it is showing you history. It's what you've already passed or drifted over. Unless you're in one spot, then it's just repeatedly showing you what's under you, which is why what is typically an arch when you're moving becomes a long squiggly line, because the fish isn't moving, you're not moving. It's just sitting there, and it continually sends back the signal showing that there's a fish there. But when you use the flasher, you'll see the history on the left, and you'll see this little band all the way on the right-hand side where it starts. That's what's under you at that moment. So you'll be able to see things coming under you at that second. And that's really the only thing that I'm focusing on when I'm using that. And I use that a lot. I don't use it all the time. Again, I don't use that for flounder fishing, because you're not going to see a flounder anyway. I don't care what anyone says. They don't have a swim bladder. So that's typically what it's sounding off of. It's typically what's creating that arch in the fish finder. They don't have it, so it's not going to happen. Now, if they're off the bottom, okay, just like your lure doesn't have a swim bladder, it's solid, but it'll still show a ping. But for the most part, if you're trying to find flounder, yes, you can, but it's a fool's errand if you think that you got to wait until you see a fish down there and assume it's a flounder, because it's just not going to happen. It's just not the best way to do it.
To chime in on that real quick, I forget whose video that I was watching. He's probably one of the most experienced fishermen around with electronics and everything like that. But he explains it just like you said. You're not going to see flounder on the screen. The only time you're going to see them is when they're swimming. And the best way to describe it, it looks like a stick. That's it. I don't know what it is.
There's nothing to them.
Yeah, you just see a stick.
They don't have a swim bladder, and that's what the sonar is bouncing off of. Or they call them returns or something.
Yeah, but well, if it's a really large fish without a swim bladder, you'll still see it, but it won't look the same.
Right.
But trying to find flounder, which are typically sitting on the bottom, is not going to be the best idea when you're out there.
Yeah, they're not that detailed.
As far as the mapping features, Mark Smith is asking, the mapping features are definitely something that I really think people should learn. To me, that's probably the most important. So
now that's the quick draw, right? Where it'll create the map based off of what you are over top of, right? Or are we talking like GPS mapping?
I think he's talking the GPS mapping and marking spots and all that stuff. I actually don't mark spots. I have hundreds, but I don't have anything marked on my fish finder at all. I've never marked a spot. I don't even know if I know how to do it on my specific fish finder because I have no interest in doing it.
And I think I have like 3 or 4, but that was for like random like pieces of structure that I found, like actual wrecks.
I guess I'm just relying on my memory. I don't know. I've never, but again, I'm fishing inshore and mostly backwaters. Now, if I was, I'll tell you, when we were fishing offshore, true offshore, 30, 40, 50 miles out, I had plenty of things marked, but there's nothing, you have to mark it out there. Otherwise you'll never find it.
Yeah. And Diesel put in the chat here. He likes my beard out of all 3. So thank you, Diesel.
Jerk.
I'm not shaving it. Listen, I've been growing this since the last time I caught a keeper, and that's how long it's gotten. So
see, I knew
maybe I'll shave it when I get a keeper.
I knew I like James Flynn for a reason. Thanks, buddy.
Man, I get no votes. That's all right.
And Billy. Thank you, Billy.
Oh, you're old. That's why.
Yeah. I'm too old.
Anyway, real quick, if you guys don't mind me answering Elle's question about Philly Girls fishing rod. Yep. So over 2 weeks ago, she was up in, I can't remember, New York or something, caught an 8-pound flounder, and the butt section of her rod snapped on her Phoenix Titan slow pitch blank. Those rods, I think, are like $350, $400. So it's not going out and, hey, I'm going to go buy a new one right away. Problem is split butt sections. For most of you guys that fish head boats, charter boats, whatever, keep in mind, you put a split butt in that rod holder, it's going to bang around. You're creating now a stress point in the blank. It's going to break. So, and that's exactly what happened. So what I did was took a old rod that I had, cut a section out, put it inside the rod, glue, do a wrap over it, epoxy, and all you can do is hope for the best. I don't know if it's going to last. It seems sturdy enough that it should be okay. But again, it's one of those things you take a chance. You can't guarantee it, but we hope it'll work.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like the split grips, but if you're boat fishing, you really shouldn't use a split grip if you're ever going to put it in a rod holder, because it's very easy. If people understand, maybe John, you want to explain how blanks are made and why it's a concern to have a split grip when you're putting it in, when you're putting it into a rod holder.
A blank is, think of it as just fibers being weaved and weaved and weaved and weaved and weaved until you get that tapered, cone. That's what it is. A fishing rod is a long cone. Now you're having that fiber constantly hit something that's metal, plastic. Well, now you're just putting dents and cracks and stress into fiber. That's all it is fiber. Once you create that weak point, all it takes is a certain bend and it's going to break.
And if I could add to that, John, I've heard as well, like leaving your rods rigged and like put them in rod holders in the truck and stuff. The hooks banging against it can do the same thing.
Yeah,
and cause them to break.
Yeah, it's again, it goes back to think about it as just thin little fibers. That's all this is. That's all a fishing rod is. And like to your point, it's a hook, a quarter ounce weight. I mean, you're just banging it across something that's weak to begin with. It's going to break it. Not saying a fishing rod is weak, but that's
you're
not
taking
what it
away
was
from
meant.
the integrity. It's not.
Yes.
It's not any one fiber that you're damaging. A rod isn't as strong as any one fiber. It's the group of them.
Yeah.
So
Right. It can unravel it though. It can essentially it's like cutting a string on a rope, just one strand and another strand. If one cuts, then you have a weak point. And, and banging it around in a rod holder, depending on what kind of rod holder it is. If it's a smooth one and it's lined with something softer, like rubber lined, we used to have rubber lined on our boat, right? On my boat, they were all lined with rubber. But you get onto these party boats and they're wood, they're PVC, and they're metal. And that can all it takes is one little horizontal slice just in the top layer and it can compromise it. So you got to be careful. But again, there was the follow-up question. So when would you use a split grip? Well, it's more comfortable. It's more comfortable to cast with. It's more comfortable to hold. But if you're going to be going out and going on a boat or throwing it in the car and having stuff, rattling off of it, it may not be the best thing. So I like split grips. I prefer split grips for a lot of different rods, but at the end of the day, if I'm when I could go and grab every single boat rod and none of them have a split grip for that very reason. And the worst thing that you can do is have one that the split grip does not, so that you don't have the actual grip hitting the top of the rod holder and let a fish hook up while it's in the rod holder, because then you get all the tension, all the pressure comes down on the blank itself, and that'll do you in real quick.
Did you ever see the videos of those guys fighting the giant? What the heck are they? They call them Jewfish. I forget. Grouper.
Yeah,
the groupers, and they take those rubber tubes and they put them over the rod because the rod will bend over the side of the boat.
Yeah, yeah, you have to. You have to. Those things are ridiculous.
The Goliath grouper, they're launching whole rotisserie chickens over the side. Let's go catch a 500-pound grouper today.
Yeah, I watched a video of a guy pulling in a shark and the thing came up and just swallowed it whole. It was unbelievable. It was awesome.
I can't remember who does those videos, but he brings them on all the time. Brings them onto the boat. And he brings.
It's Blacktip H. He brings all like the famous people out.
Yeah. I think he had Warren Sapp on there. I know that's who you're trying
Warren
to get.
Sapp is a big. Yeah, I've been trying to get him to come on the podcast and live stream. He's a big fisherman.
Yeah, but I think he put him up to the challenge of a grouper, and he was one of those guys you just see him just drenched in sweat, like
Yeah, that would be unreal.
And back to the beard debate, Rich, you got one comment off the side about your tan. You have the better tan.
I do have the better tan.
I will give you credit for that. You do have a better tan than any of us.
I got the better tan line too.
Oh,
yeah. I got the better tan line. All right, so there was a good question in here that I want to show. With the hurricane season ramping, pressure drops, and excessive rain, do you make adjustments from inventor creator? So this is an excellent question. Now, I wouldn't necessarily tie it to hurricane season, but just generally speaking, pressure drops, you have a great uptick in fishing, and then it gets terrible on pressure drops, right? If you have it steady, it's okay fishing. It's fine. It's average fishing during steady pressure. When it's rising, that's really good fishing. And the reason, quite simply, one of the reasons is, think of a fish under the water, and the air pressure increases. It just it presses down on the water more and it gets heavier on top of the fish, and in the water it presses in on them more. For some reason, that gets them more active. And when it drops, it's kind of that release of pressure. It's kind of like this momentary euphoria. They're like feeding, going crazy. And then as it continues, it just turns off. So yes, I absolutely look at pressure. I might be one of the few people that do. I look on tidesforfishing.com at the pressure changes. And I look at it to see, am I fishing the rising, the falling? The calm before the storm is good because that's the dropping pressure. When you get before the storm, the day before the storm, that's when the pressure is dropping. And then the bite will be awesome. And then it turns off. And then as the pressure starts rising, that's when you end up getting the fishing turns back on again. So I do that. Now, as far as excessive rain, it depends on the species. People say fish don't care if they're wet. They're already wet. They don't care if you're wet. Well, they do care about salinity when we're talking salt water. So, and they do care about water clarity, and they do care about the currents and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, there are certain species that you have to be careful of. If you look at flounder, if you're in an area that has different types of flounder, let's say it's southern flounder and the summer flounder, which we have up here in New Jersey, the summer flounder is the most sensitive to salinity levels out of all the three major species of flounder that are caught on the eastern seaboard. So you're not going to, if you got a ton of rain coming in, 17 inches of rain comes in over the past 2 weeks, you're going to be looking to move for those summer flounder closer to the inlet, whereas the southern flounder, they may move a little bit, but they're not going to be pushed out of areas as much. A Gulf flounder won't even care. They'll just still sit wherever they are, practically up into the fresh water if they want to. But yeah, I make adjustments. Do you guys make adjustments when, or do you not look at it?
See, that's one thing I've never paid attention to. I've never equated it to my fishing production, which maybe it's something I should start looking into.
So,
John?
Yeah, well, before a hurricane, guess what? I'm getting out. They're going to be eating. They eat. There's an uptake in them just chewing. And then, like you said, it's just because the pressure's about to change. And I think it just sends off a signal that they know it's coming. And then after that, it's 3-4 days. It's shut down. I mean, I saw that one. I wasn't going to say anything. I absolutely thought that was hilarious.
My money's on Rich.
But I will say I'm going to fish right before the storm, and I'm going to wait 3-4 days after the storm, and then I'll go back out after that, just because of the pressure and the salinity's got that water so turned up. It's going to take a while for it to get back to normal.
Yeah, but let's be honest. For the most part, the rain is less about the salinity for most species, and it's more about the water clarity and the water cleanliness. If you got stuff sweeping off sod banks, down rivers, especially as he's mentioning, South Carolina is where the fishing is taking place. You get all that, the waters get muddy, the salinity is all over the place. Absolutely. And the summer flounder down there are not going to respond really well to, a tropical storm coming through right away. They're going to move towards the inlets. They need the higher salinity whenever possible. Now, that doesn't mean you won't catch them, that you can't catch them up in the rivers, where the rivers empty out into the bays. You absolutely can. But if you got a ton of that water coming down and you now have the fresh overwhelming the salt, they're going to start to move closer to the inlets because they prefer the higher salinity.
And real quick, just to clarify this, inventor creator, you're saying you are from South Carolina? Am I reading that right? Cool. I mean, hey,
it's cool to have a viewer that far away. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, he's talking a whole different level of playing field. Talking reds and fluke down that way. So.
Yeah, well, I hope to be talking reds in the fall. I've been doing a lot of work scouting around for redfish and places where they could be, and I found some that I think are definitely going to hold them, and I think they do already. So I'm going to get out and try that. I'm actually working on a long video for that, just kind of outlining the entire hunt, everything I'm looking at and thinking, so that I can take people through. Yeah, so I could take people through the process that I went through to try to find them. Because I'll tell you what, I know people that catch them. I'm friends with people that catch them and they won't tell me anything. So I was like, that's fine, man. I totally understand because they worked really hard to find them, but I'm going to work really hard to find them. And then I can share whatever I want to share. Now, I'm not going to say spots. It's just out of respect for those people that did work really hard, but I'm going to tell you the exact process I went through. So I'm kind of working on that. I think that'll be, I think it'll be fun, whether it's a success or a failure. It's something that I'm doing. So I'm going to share that with people.
But then once you prove yourself and catch them on your own, those people are going to open up to you. I guarantee it.
Oh, sure. And I get it. I'm not going to complain about it. I absolutely get it.
Not at all.
There was another thing in here I wanted to talk about. First of all, people think that John is going to be the best in a bar fight. I'm going to bet John's never been in a bar fight.
He's got a man bun, or what is that, a ponytail?
I've been in, I guess we could say 3 bar fights. 2 of them were wins. 1 of them was a loss. So
okay,
the one was with a guy that was practicing MMA. So it didn't end well.
That didn't work well.
No.
Yeah. Well, you haven't been in bar fights if you've won every bar fight. I think that's
true.
I think that's just the fact of the matter. That's one of the reasons I don't go to bars anymore, because I can't keep my mouth shut when people are acting like asses.
Yeah, you go home and you got your ass kicked, self-disgust. You're looking at yourself in the mirror like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm too old for that kind of stuff now. No, not going to do it. There were some other things in here. The question, what's the best way to transport a rod? I mean,
Vertically.
What's that?
I'd say vertically.
Yeah, so there are a couple. There's no great way, let's be honest, unless you put it in a padded case. If you put it outside, like in the bed of the truck, which a lot of people do, which, by the way, I do from time to time. All it takes is one rock to hit, especially if it's a carbon fiber rod. One rock hitting it, and you're in a little bit of trouble. But the best thing to do is to take the jigs off. Take all of your tackle off before you transport it, no matter what, because that's going to cause the problem when they rattle inside the truck. And for full disclosure, I do not take mine off before I go home. I leave them on. I throw them in the truck, and I hear the freaking rattling for 2.5 hours. So, I just do that. I'm telling you what you should do, not what I do.
Yeah, I was gifted a rod rack for my truck, so it straddles the bed rails. So I just put them in that. Now, if I'm going in a store or something, I'll lay them inside the truck. That way they're secured. But typically, I just leave them in there.
Yeah, Elle's saying they make jig wraps. I know. I have a lot of stuff that I don't use that I should use, and I do have some jig wraps that I should be using. You can just Velcro them. Just put a strip of Velcro around them too, but I don't do it. I just throw them in the truck and listen to the freaking top water that I have on there. I've got a Moonwalker on one of my rods, and that thing just rattles the entire 2.5 hours each direction every time I go fishing. And for some reason, I can't lean over and just take it off. So
I like to touch on this one. KB says he's done well on my jigs, which thank you, sir. At least you guys are doing well, because I'm not. And he's doing sea bass and fluke, but you'll get your sea legs soon enough, sir.
I've done well on your jigs.
Everyone has, except me.
I just want to get out on the reef. That's all I want to do, but the weather has not been cooperating.
John has gotten the boat fever, and he wants to get out on the reef, and that's like all he thinks about now. He's dreaming of the reef.
Honestly, I don't even want to fluke on the reef. I want to tog on the reef.
I know.
The point is proven that Bucci got that 8.3 pound over the weekend, man. That's jealous.
So I dropped a camera down inshore along some bridge pilings on Friday. Just wanted to see what was there. The number of tog was absolutely insane. I caught one sheep's head and just a ton of tog. Now, I did not expect there to be sheep's head where I was. I did expect there to be tog. They were all over. They were all 10 feet down, and none of them were big. I think the biggest one that I wasn't even trying to catch them. The biggest one that I caught that day was probably 12 and a half inches, and that was it. But they were all over. And actually on the video I put out today, I was foul hooking a ton of them because there were so many of them. You get one bite, you set the hook, and there's 30 of them in the way of the jig. And I was just like, man, your jigs are good at hooking things in the gut, Ed.
Oh, you know what? Let me back up to that because I took my nephew out to the AC jetties on Saturday. There are so much micro togs still around. So many. Because I
Yeah.
couldn't even get the bait to the bottom without it just getting peeled off right away.
Which is good because you were there with a kid and
Yeah.
they don't care about anything but tight lines. So
I mean, honestly, I think the micros kind of moved in because now the water's warmed up. I don't know if
Yeah.
you noticed, but when tog season opened up, the water was still cold
Yep.
or cool for at least this time of year, and there was a lot of big fish getting caught. I think there was a dude caught an 8-pounder on the at the one spot we launched at, Rich, that beach.
yeah.
It was all over Facebook. Dude caught like an 8.5-pounder. So I think they're switching around here.
I just can't bring myself to fish for tog right now. And I can
Mhm.
only keep one. I just don't care.
But we do have breaking news. Elle said she's getting a bigger boat, so we're partying.
I'm in. I'll get my captain's license. Then she can hire me. Then I can. Then I'll move down there.
Yeah, look, dude, full-time job. It's all figured out. You're working again. Done.
Yeah, there you go. I'm kind of liking not working. And I want to bring this point up. So Joe Billups, who goes out on the water with us from time to time, he trolled 12 hours on Friday. Not much to show for it, except for the sailfish that he caught, which he did not put in his comment. So he's trying to make us all feel better about 12 hours. Yeah, 12 hours of trolling is a grind. I hate trolling for more than like 5 minutes. So he went 12 hours, but at the end of those 12 hours, he reeled in a sailfish. So we don't care, Joe. You take your 12 hours and you smile at the end of it. Oh man.
I still get to he told me, he's like, yeah, nothing much to show. Sailfish. Still have yet to see a picture of this sailfish.
Wow. I don't do that standard, but I just believe everybody. Sorry, Ed, I accidentally unshowed.
Yeah, Elle said she's getting a 21-foot Parker center
Nice.
console.
Nice.
That's a solid heavy boat. Yeah, we're going offshore.
I'll just say this. Just remember, Elle, that you and I have a good relationship, better than the other two guys and you. So when they start calling you,
Bro, at least I don't have a man bun.
well, that is true.
Don't
That is
matter.
true.
Doesn't matter if you have a man bun or not, man.
All right, so we're way off topic. I want to bring it back to this, and I do want to point out, because I know that you guys didn't have the best of weeks last week, but I'm going to tell you right now, based on the where I was out, and I was out in different areas, similar launch areas, but miles apart. So I probably covered a range of about 9 miles total in 2 days, and I was catching fish all over the place in all depths of water, but I was looking for the structure. The fish are there, nice size fish. The underslots that I was getting were, I don't think there were any that were under 16 and a half, 16 and a quarter. So they were all over 16. I had a lot that were real close to 17, but I had plenty of slots, plenty of over slots. They're there, but you got to look for the structure, and you have to fish it the right way, because as John mentioned at the very beginning, the fish are all over. They're in all depths. They're going to be wherever they want because it's comfortable everywhere, but you need to find out of all that area where are the spots that are going to filter that food to them and send it right to them. And that's where you're going to want to set up. If you're getting all the shorts, especially the micros, you're in the wrong spot. Just pick up and move. You're not going to have a 22-inch sitting next to a 14-inch. It's just not, it's not going to happen. There's a reason the 14-inch fluke are there. It's because there are no 22s to drive them off. There's no 24s to drive them off to claim that territory. So, you're not quite in the right spot. Doesn't mean you're far off. You could only be 10, 15, 20 feet off, 20 yards off. But, that's one time that I would lead the fish to find the fish. Live bait worked really well for me both days, but gulp came back into the picture. I'm using the smaller gulp It doesn't matter the color. I use a lot of pinks and greens, so that's generally what I'm dropping first. And I was catching on both. I got to the point where I didn't even care. I was just literally reaching into my gulp buckets. And by the way, I just mix all the colors and all the styles in there. And I was just grabbing whatever was in there that wasn't a 6-inch, and I was putting it on the hooks and I was catching. So that should continue this week. You know, we got the winds that are not the best right now. We've got some south winds. I think they were pretty strong today. Some southwest winds, which are not great for the water temperatures, but it shouldn't change everything up. We've had plenty of northwest and not northwest, north and northeast in there as well to kind of keep the water, you know, where it needs to be. So
yeah, I think
that's how I call it.
I'm gonna go Wednesday and then see what I can come up with. I need a solo trip. Need to get right with myself.
Yeah, I'm going solo tomorrow. I'm going to. I don't know where I'm going yet, which is pretty bad. It's 9:00 the night before, and wherever I'm going, I'm leaving at like 4:30 or 4:45. So I got to figure something out. But I'm going to be doing a lot of exploring. Again, I'm still looking for the redfish. I'm working on that quote unquote project, and I am enjoying being out there alone. Not saying I don't want to fish with people. I'm just saying it is nice sometimes to get out there and just disappear in the salt marshes and not see anybody all day.
Yep,
That's
what I'm
nice.
doing. But if you wanna fish up this way, I got a couple areas that I have set to explore. If you want to give it a go, I'll send them to you.
Yeah, I'll talk to you because I still have to figure out what I'm doing on Friday. Again, you know, no matter where I go, I have to be somewhere where I can look for spots that could hold reds later in the year. I'm determined. I mean, that is my favorite fish to target. And, you know, I don't like having to wait until I go south to do it. So if they're here in any numbers, I'm going to find them. I'm definitely going to find them.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Before we go, one question that we need to bring up. John, this is for you.
I have to go back and look at the specs. I have to give you a price.
Hold on. This is also a podcast. John, I believe I heard you make a rod called Fat Dad. What's Fat Dad Fluke Rod? What are the specs and the price?
I have to go back. I have to look at these specs, and I have to give you a price. It all depends on what you're looking for out of the rod. Simple black rod labor is $75. That's not including, you know, all the parts. But I have to look at exactly what those specs were. I can't remember it off the top hand. We've only did 2 of them. It was yours and Tad's. That's it. But KB, do reach out, because if you're doing more ocean fishing, it might not be the rod.
He says that, but I just pulled in a big brown shark on it. I pulled in a 6-foot wide stingray on it. You know, 43-inch bass. You know.
John's working on the Captain Hanks signature model too. So
Yep. Mm-hmm. Working on the Captain Hanks rod.
The signature model.
There's no signature model. He wishes. No, I have his. I have Philly Girl Fishing. She's getting a rod. So, and I do have another project that I have to get done, which is a surprise. So,
yeah, I'd like to get a slow pitch rod, but I'm afraid because everybody's breaking their slow pitch rods.
Yeah, it's the way it's seeming to be.
Yep. I mean, you blew one up. Philly Girl blew one up. I've seen a couple of other people blow theirs up. So
she blew hers up.
Doesn't matter. It blew up.
Section. I mean,
I know it still blew up.
Yeah,
still blew up. So we gotta talk about that. So anyway, I think that'll wrap it up. John, do you have any last things that you want to share with people before they hit the water this week?
No, I think we've covered everything. Anybody that wants to get out, I'm heading out Friday. I will be in Avalon at 6:30. Is the plan.
All right. Avalon, 6:30.
6:30. Be there or be square.
I might be square. I don't know if I'm heading down there. Ed, where are you headed? Well, you don't have to say where, but
I can't give up those secrets. I'm going out Wednesday. Like I said, I'm going solo. I haven't done one yet this year. I've fished with people, a lot of new people this year, and every trip has been with someone. So I need that day to myself. But But the only thing I could recommend is follow the KISS method. I think that's part of why I'm struggling, because I'm thinking too much. Just keep it simple, stupid. And I think that is what I'm gonna do.
I'm going to agree. I know from going out with people that a lot of people overthink it. And I do it too. So I'm not saying you guys do it. I don't know. Everybody does it. You get out there and get in your own head. Go out there with a plan. First of all, make your plan ahead of time, right? If you're going to an area, doesn't matter how you do it. If you say, look, I'm going out to this area. Okay. You still have to make a plan and figure out how am I going to fish it? What direction am I going to be? Where am I going to set up for a drift? Am I going to anchor? Am I going to troll? Whatever. I don't care if you're offshore. Look, offshore. You better have a plan. You don't just say I'm going out to the 28-mile wreck and just go out there and just show up. You got to have a plan for what you're going to do. So I think have a plan and execute on that plan. And if it's not working, be quick to change that plan. But that doesn't mean you throw everything out the window. If you want to go out for sheep's head and you hit a bridge and you don't get anything on the first two pilings, well, go to a different piling, go to another piling, go to a nearby dock. Don't throw the whole plan out just because it didn't work to start with. Just adapt it. Figure out why. Was there more current there than you thought? Okay. Was there less current? Look around and find that spot. But I think that's a big thing. Go out there, have a plan, execute on the plan, and just be willing, once you give it a fair shot, and I'm talking a half an hour, it can be a fair shot for certain things. Sheep's head, I say, is a little bit different because you can fish one piling and it can take you 20 minutes to a half an hour to fish one piling. If you fish all the, especially some of these bridges with two pilings underneath one abutment, you got to be thorough. But if you're flounder fishing, you're hitting a spot, you've hit it 6 times and you've gone, over in from different starting points and ending points and you're not getting anything, pick it up and move. And don't move to the exact same kind of spot in another place, right? Don't hit the same exact thing 3/4 of a mile away. If you were fishing a drop off down to 35 feet and you weren't getting anything, well, maybe you should check a creek mouth, or maybe you should check, a point or something like that, a choke point or a hole, and try those, change it up that way. So that's just what I would say. But I say that knowing that that's what I did the last couple times out, and I have no complaints. I've caught a lot of fish. I have a full freezer right now, and I was very happily throwing back fish before I had limits. So
good. I'm coming over for dinner.
Yeah. Well, my son is going to college on Thursday, so it's going to be just 2 of us left in the house. So we're going to have a lot of extra fish. So Ed and John, you're invited over, as well as anybody else in the chat.
I still would like to do a get together barbecue thing before summer's over.
Yeah, we should. We definitely should. We'll go to John's house.
I got a bigger pool though.
Okay, we'll go to your house.
My pool is gone.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a pool.
For those that aren't aware, John got a little kiddie pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to keep things real, man.
Yes.
Do you wear swimmies?
No, but the occasional cocktail gets involved and it's a problem.
I can see
Just
that
wear
happening.
your PFD.
Yes.
I
Always
should.
wear your PFD. All right, guys. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. We still are working on a guest for next week, so we'll let you know as soon as we have that figured out. But it's a good week coming up. We had a little weather come through today in New Jersey, Delaware, but for a lot of the coast, man, most of the coast. This is looking like a great week. So get out there and get on the water. There's some fish out there, and look forward to hearing from everyone how you did when we get back here next week. So until then, tight lines, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.